High Court is hearing this case. Politics is raging. Here's the latest from the Congress. Karthi Chidambaram has now put out a tweet. He says, divide society, weaponize religious identity, chants of piety, now a new war cry. This is the latest from Congress's Karthi Chidambaram. You heard Giriraj Singh, the union minister. He said, we will not allow India to turn into an Islamic state. Deepak.
Yes, Karthi Chidambaram in particular has been quite vocal over the matter repeatedly over the last 1 week. Of course, he's been tweeting over this. He's been attacking the BJP. He's been saying that this is an attempt by the BJP to divide two communities and especially use the students for their own political gain. The BJP, on the other hand, has been saying that it is not them that is politicizing this matter. They're saying there are hidden hands at play here for instigating the students. Overall, if the government machinery believes that there are people who are instigating the students, they need to be checked in the first place, because there are protests happening from there are Hindu students who are protesting wearing saffron shawls. Who is really encouraging them to protest in various institutions across the state? What we've been told is that some students who are not wearing a hijab earlier to campuses are also wearing, in addition to a few others who are wearing it earlier. So what is leading to this move as well? Are there organizations?
And this is what happened, viewers. If you're joining our broadcast on Times Now, this is what happened through this morning. There were protests, showdown between student groups. Sample this.
They are asking, remove your scarf or else sleep. They are telling, remove your scarf or else sleep. We can't remove our scarf. But we are not ready to do. We are not ready to agree this thing.
Okay. And as far as the uniform in the college is concerned, what has been the practiced uniform here in the college? What has been the usual uniform?
First they allowed to wear hijab. Now they are suddenly starting this. We could have gone to PPC. Why we came here? Because hijab is allowed. So only we came. Our parents allowed here, so hijab is allowed. Or else we would have not come here. Hijab is allowed. Suddenly they can't remove. Suddenly they can't tell us to remove. It's our obligation. It's us to us.
You're all first year students?
Finally. If we were first year, it now suddenly it became an issue.
So you've been wearing it from where?
3 years. We are wearing it from school days. Not because we are wearing it since childhood. Even if we go outside the campus or else from outside to somewhere, we wear this. These boys wear saffron shawl today only. They could have wear it from since childhood. We don't have any problem. We will see how many days they will play. How many days they will wear. Yeah, we will see how many days they will wear.
ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ನ ಅವನ್ನ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬಿಡೋಕೆ?
ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಿನ್ನೆ ನಮಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಇವತ್ತೊಂದು ದಿವಸ ಬಿಡುವ, ನಾಳೆಯಿಂದ ಅವ್ರು ಹಿಜಾಬ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡ್ ಬರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಬಿಡುದಿಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಒಳಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬಿಡುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರು ಹೋದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಕೂಡ ಹೋಗ್ತೇವೆ ಒಳಗೆ.
Well, they're saying if they are allowed inside the campus, even they should be allowed wearing the saffron shawl. So it's a standoff of sorts. That are protesting here. They are demanding that they should be allowed to wear a hijab. And they are saying that they will, not even write the exams if they are not allowed to wear a hijab. They are saying that, they will continue to protest. If you wear a hijab, there should be uniformity.
Let them wear their saffron shawl. We have no problem. We respect their religion. They respect their religion. They should respect us. They should first respect us. They should learn.
Today, the Karnataka High Court is hearing this matter. I'm just asking you in terms of two scenarios. One is if the Karnataka High Court allows for you to wear a hijab.
Priority, education is secondary. This is our first priority. The education. And we will wear. Plan. Yes.
Okay. And even if the High Court directs that you shouldn't wear it,
that will be High Court cannot go against our constitution, so we'll protest again.
Bopanna on the ground. Let's go back to Deepak. Bopanna on the ground. Updates pouring. Your guests also joining us. Deepak, the advocate for the petitioner, has said some of the students wearing scarves attended all girls section and not a co-ed institution.
Yes, like I mentioned, there are multiple colleges that have come into the picture now. The Udupi College is one of them. That is an all-girls college where students there were made to sign these consent forms. Whereas there are other colleges which are co-ed in nature as well, where the students and the administration in the college itself says that they have been scarves. They have been wearing hijabs or scarves earlier as well. So there are, 2-3 scenarios that are coming into the picture here as scenarios even in government institutions and in the private institutions. Everything is different from one another, so it needs to be really dissected, looked at from a very close lens, and then decided as to how to maintain law and order, which now is becoming a big issue in various campuses across the state of Karnataka. The arguments, of course, will continue. Not just with perspective to respected to one particular college, that is the Udupi Government College, but it will now delve into all other campuses and what's been happening there as well. So it's going to be a very interesting scenario. The arguments, of course, are going to be even more interesting, and finally the observations of the court is what we are waiting for in this matter, which up until now have not given clarity as to what could be the final order of the Karnataka High Court.
Okay, Kapil Madan, let me bring you in. What do you make of the argument so far?
Well, Pranesh, we need to see here that different high courts have given conflicting judgments. In fact, we have Kerala High Court in Nahida Rahim's case, where a Muslim student was allowed to wear hijab while appearing in exam. We had Bombay High Court also, that is Fatima Hussain versus Bharat Education Society, where the court said that wearing of headscarf is not essential to the it is not an essential or the integral practice of Islam. Now, I think it is a fit case where I would say that the Supreme Court should intervene and the controversy should be settled one and for all. And whatever is happening, at the college, it is disturbing, and
yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, make your point.
Yeah. So whatever is happening at the situation, I think it's very, very disturbing, and I think it is a fit case where some urgent interim directions should be passed to ensure that there is no law and order issue in the colleges and ultimately everyone in the college.
Okay, let me bring in Deepak Bopanna. Deepak, the Congress leaders are tweeting back-to-back. Salman Anish Soza has put out a tweet. He says, it pains me to see how so many young minds have been poisoned, but whether it is this young woman or others in Karnataka, they are not alone. Love will eventually overpower hate.
Yes, there are certain instances that right now, especially the videos from certain colleges in Mandya, there has been an instance where one girl who comes in wearing a burqa and she's wearing a hijab, she comes in there, and there are, of course, a bunch of students who begin to heckle her, chant slogans, and then she chants slogans in return as well. And this, of course, is something that the Congress has tweeted. They have also tweeted on the flag being hoisted in a college in Shivamogga, the saffron flag that was hoisted in place of a tricolor. There's been a lathi-charge that has been reported in Bagalkot as well. So yes, the Congress is saying that the government is unable to really control the scenario. Educational institutions are becoming areas where two groups are standing off against each other. The police are resorting to lathi-charge on students, and this is mismanagement is what the Congress says. And apart from that, they're also alleging that this is the handiwork of the BJP.
Okay, we have political reactions pouring in. This is what Giriraj Singh, who is a union minister, said. He was asked a question on the hijab controversy. He said, this is the Gazwa-e-Hind mindset. Listen to this, viewers.
कुछ लोग देश के माहौल को बिगाड़ना चाहते हैं. गजवाए हिंद की मानसिकता वाले, जो इस्लामिक स्टेट की कल्पना लेकर के भारत के सांप्रदायिक सौहार्द को बिगाड़ना चाहते हैं, जो सर्वधर्म समभाव का, ये समाज का माहौल बिगाड़ने की कोशिश है. ये भारत है, सर्वधर्म समभाव के आधार पर चलेगा, न कि इस्लामिक स्टेट भारत को बनाने की कोशिश करने वालों की मानसिकता हम पूरा नहीं होने देंगे. भारत रहेगा, भारत पाकिस्तान नहीं बनेगा।
Firoz Ahmed Bakht, he is the Vice Chancellor of the Maulana Azad University, is also with us. Bakht Saab, Shukriya, good afternoon. What do you think of this?
Look here, sir, let me clarify. I am not the Vice Chancellor. I was a Chancellor, but my term is over. Anyway, coming to this very, very unfortunate controversy and something which was not required at all, let me tell you one thing, that some people on both the sides, they are unnecessarily trying to snowball this controversy, which is not actually a political controversy. It is not a religious controversy. It was a very small academic issue, which unfortunately has been snowballed into a religious and political controversy. There was no need to go to that level. There was no need to actually go to the High Court. And I request all the girls who are part of it, in fact, of the 6 girls who wanted hijab, let me tell them as a brother or as a father, or whatever they take me as an uncle, that they should go back to their classes. Hijab is not as important as their education. The thing of paramount importance is their education.
Okay.
And some people within the community...
Ahmed Saab, your point taken. Let me bring Deepak Bopanna. Let's have Deepak Bopanna in one of the windows, please. Let's have Deepak Bopanna on the screen continuously. Deepak, you have been speaking to these students who said that we will not accept an order where hijab is banned inside the classroom.
Well, Pranesh, if you could repeat that, please.
Yes, you have been speaking to girl students who've said that this is our fundamental right and we will only attend classes when hijab is allowed.
Yes, Pranesh, and this specific question I asked to multiple students, and one thing that they're saying is that it's okay if their education today is, being affected. They're saying it's okay if they're not being allowed to write their exam. They're saying they will not, go inside by removing the hijab. They're only going to enter the campus, the classroom, wearing a hijab. This is something that they've stated very clearly. So it's going to be very interesting if there is a High Court direction that is against of them wearing a hijab. What's going to be the scenario really, and how is it really going to affect their futures? And on the other side, I spoke to some of the students who are protesting against these girls wearing hijab. They too, are pretty firm that they're saying as long as the girls are allowed inside the campuses wearing
Okay, more
hijab,
updates coming in. Deepak, allow me to come in here. Sorry to interrupt you. Impugned order which claims precedent of High Court order is not valid. It has nothing to do. Karnataka High Court is hearing the hijab case. Viewers, the court has said, courts have also observed that a head staff is an essential part of a dress, not necessarily a cloak or hijab that covers the face. Petitioner has said rights in a minority institution are different. And the court said, where was the last time that 2 fundamental rights trumpeted? Deepak.
Yes, like, we've been noticing what's been happening inside the court as well, and following that, it seems pretty interesting now, the arguments that are ensuing, and at the end of the day really boils down to what the court really believes that they should go by, and using these arguments by the advocates, they'll finally, make that interim order or a final order, and that's going to be very vital, because right now the fundamental rights of the students is being discussed. They're talking about, the right to expression that's enshrined in the Constitution, and they're saying that attire is also a form of expression that students should be allowed. They're talking about how their religious practice tells them that the wearing of a hijab is compulsory, and that's what the students are doing. All of this is, of course, being brought before
Okay, quick word from Anurag Naidu. Anurag Naidu, how are you reading this?
Well, actually, see, if you actually decode the Karnataka thing, there was, when Padmaja before this asked, there were some colleges had rule books, some colleges had rules but not enforced. Now, the problem here is the complexity of the issue. What we also need to understand, some institutions, they have let the students sign a declaration. Even after signing their declaration, if they're coming out and they're protesting against the hijab or uniformity in the attire,
and that's something that they also need to introspect, whether they're putting hijab over education. Absolutely, the Chancellor himself, who joined our panel, has made it very clear that education should always take the front seat and let the courts and governments do the job. But it is good. It's a high time that, because it's very disturbing to see this kind of controversy and religious politics entering the corridors of universities and colleges, and it is high time that the courts and the union government themselves or the Supreme Court should put a stop over it and have a uniformity on this rule, having covering the pan-India as a base, and that is what we should be looking at. We really need to end this
and just
controversy
look at these scenes,
today.
these scenes in different parts of the Karnataka, from what was started as a religion versus rights issue. This is now becoming a law and order issue, because stone pelting has taken place and the police has had to use force. Lathi-charge captured on camera. Deepak?
Yes, definitely that's a concern. And, while we witnessed in the beginning some sort of protest that took place, students not being allowed inside the campus, up until then it seemed like the government could handle the situation. But now when you look at the situation that's unfolding in various parts of the state, one would really question the machinery, the government machinery here. On one hand, you have students pelting stones at their campuses, the flag post where the tricolor flies high inside the school or the college campus. A saffron flag is being hoisted by the students who are protesting against the girls wearing hijab. There's lathi-charge that's going on in a couple of places. So, there are women who are being heckled, and they are classmates of these children. So, what's really breaking?
Okay, allow me to come in here. Observations coming in. The petitioner has cited what the Malaysian High Court had ruled. He says, Malaysian High Court ruling also says scarf is obligatory. All of these arguments buttress my contention that a headscarf is part of an attire, not a hijab or veil. This is what the petitioner is saying. Deepak.
Yes, right now, of course, all judgments that will go in favor of either of the advocates, of course, is going to be presented before the court. We saw some judgments from the SR Bommai case that was being cited. Now, judgments from, from Malaysia being cited. We saw, judgments from the Kerala High Court as well that was cited a little while earlier. As a part of the argument, we are going to have various judgments because they are judicial precedents, and that's something that's going to add weight to their arguments, and that's going to be important. And coming back to the earlier point of how we've been witnessing widespread agitations and some of them even turning violent and disrupting public harmony, it remains to be seen how the government really tackles this scenario at this point in time and puts an end to these sort of situations which disrupt harmony, which affect the atmosphere inside the campus, because that is priority at this point in time. Because as we are seeing protests that continue in the state of Karnataka, it is getting from bad to worse, and that is not something that we expect to take place in campuses, especially in a vibrant state like Karnataka. Such sort of a situation was unprecedented, and now we are witnessing this happening by the hour in various districts, almost spread across the state now. And we've seen now the other states as well follow suit. We've seen a reaction that's coming from Madhya Pradesh as well on similar lines. So this is something that needs to be educated very soon, so that a result will be found through either the court or through the directions of the government.
Visuals that have come from Udupi in Shivamogga. In Udupi, you were there all this morning, and you were speaking to different student groups, and they were adamant. Some student groups who were wearing saffron shawls, Deepak, they told you that they will not allow hijab inside the classroom. They said all this in front of the college administration staff which was present, and then you spoke to the girls who said nothing doing. We will attend classes only when hijab is allowed, and now court is hearing the case where the petitioner is saying headscarf is essential, not hijab or veil. And Majid Memon, senior advocate, now joining us to decode the observation and arguments going on in the court. Yes, Mr. Memon, the Karnataka High Court is hearing the case. What do you make of this?
You see, the controversy with regard to wearing hijab has unnecessarily been stretched too far. What was very saddening is that certain non-Muslim students were made to come with saffron shawls, etc. What does that mean? Does that not mean that there is some hand which is trying to divide society? And I think we must condemn this kind of an act. Students, whether they are Muslim girls or otherwise, have suffered so much because of COVID that there were no classes for almost 2 years. Now that the schools and colleges have opened, we are now fighting for hijab, which is something unfortunate. Now, constitutional assurances, the guarantees given under Article 25, under Article 14, certainly will have to be respected. And without breach to the rule of discipline, the hijabs are being used by Muslim girls for their traditional customary rules. And I don't think anybody should have any objection on that. And the courts would certainly weigh between the right of the educational institutions for making a student follow the new uniform rule on one side and the constitutional rights of the students to wear the dress which they are permitted to or they would want to, and therefore a compromise is struck. And I think this should now rest and given a communal color at all.
Now, sir, I'll come to that because the Union Minister Giriraj Singh has said that they will not allow this Ghazwa-e-Hind mindset. His words, not mine.
Well, I'm sorry that BJP ministers or BJP MPs or leaders are trying to provoke and create unnecessary controversy or differences between different sections of Indian society. You see, all boys, girls, all students, they are going to the colleges only for receiving education and not for, provoked for the purpose of dividing society. So I think BJP leaders should also exercise in commenting to matters.
So as a legal expert, what do you make of the arguments which are currently underway, sir? Allow me to read out a couple of arguments. The petitioner has said that the current students wore their headscarves from the time of their admission till a time recently when someone came up with a reason. Following that, a new circular was issued by the state. Earlier, the petitioner said that even the Malaysian High Court has said that scarf is obligatory, that headscarf is a part of attire, not a hijab.
No, but you see, the question is that if up to this date, till the closure by COVID, if the girls were using hijab and there was no violation of uniform code, it was being accepted by the educational institutions, why a new circular is issued? What made them issue a new circular? What is the problem created by wearing hijab? I can understand if it obstructs the imparting of education or if it violates the uniform rule, then one can understand some sensibility in issuing such letters. If the girls are wearing hijab, subject to the uniform, they wear uniform also, and then they receive education, why should anybody have objection? Unless you have a grudge, unless you have some personal or religious grudge against some group of students. I'm sorry that this has to be sorted out without being publicized so widely as it has been in the last 1 week or so.
How will this be sorted out? Majid Memon, this is now snowballing into a law and order issue.
It shouldn't become a law and order issue at all. Who is creating law and order problem and why? Please ask the people who are wanting to create law and order problem. Where is the law and order problem? It is only a question of students appearing before the classrooms in a particular attire. Where is the question of law and order? Only some people who are interested in creating law and order mischievously for political motivation or for some other consideration may be doing so.
Okay, my final question to you, Mr. Majid Memon, as a senior advocate, as a lawyer, as a legal expert, what do you make of this Malaysian High Court order that said that headscarf is part of attire, not hijab?
You see, these are all issues which need to be dispassionately examined on merits. You should not have a mindset to see that, well, this is belonging to minorities or majorities or this is affecting... You see how sad it is that when there is a controversy about hijab, a group of students were made to wear saffron shawls for what confrontation? Who was behind this? I think that should be probed. Who did that and for what? Do you want to have clash between two groups of people among the students to send a message across to Indian society that we can't live in peace together. Therefore, I think this is, let it rest.
Okay.
And let us not stretch it too far.
Okay, let's not stretch it too far. Majid Memon, thanks for joining us. Thanks for putting the arguments in court in perspective for our viewers. The state suspects a hidden hand. Deepak?
Yes, so the state suspects that there are hidden forces who are backing these protests, but the question is, what's the state missionary doing? Because it has the police at its disposal, it has the intelligence at its disposal. Who are the people who are encouraging students to come out and protest? Who are the people who are encouraging students who are not wearing a hijab, who used to enter campuses without it, to now join forces with the other students in protest outside the campuses? So there are two lenses that the government should look through, and either of the sides that are protesting, and who's really backing them, and how is the government or the police allowing rather for these elements to back these students, soil their minds, affect the situation inside campuses? This is something that we need to look into. And I'm just getting an update that's coming in from Shivamogga after we saw the saffron flag that was hoisted in one of the campuses. We saw some stone pelting as well take place, some lathi-charge. After that, we've been told that Section 144 has been imposed in the district for the next couple of days. We're just getting this update from Shivamogga, so it is definitely a very, very tense situation that's going on. Prohibitory orders now being imposed in a district over this sort of issue that was witnessed inside a school campus, college campus.
And allow me to read out arguments which are underway in the Karnataka High Court. Students not trying to incite anyone. They have been using this throughout peacefully. That this would lead to public order is a far-fetched argument. This is the argument from the other side. Deepak.
Well, Pranesh, now, arguments, of course, are taking place, thick and strong. There have been political parties that have been reacting to this. They have been condemning it. But the question here really lies as to how and what are they doing to really help resolve this particular situation. And what is, the government really waiting for in terms of controlling forces that could be encouraging students to actually come out and protest and create problems inside college campuses. This is something that needs to be definitely looked into. The government order and the ambiguity that brings in, and also the confusion that it really creates in the entire scenario pertaining to the uniform is another issue. Waiting for High Court directions, and before the High Court directions, not able to control the scenario inside campuses, both the management and at the local levels of administration. That is also another concern. So there are a multitude of issues that really need to be looked into. But what is very important at this point in time is to restore balance and ensure that education for these students inside the campuses is not affected, because most of the students protesting are
to ask you this from in fact last evening we have been showing different pictures of students from multiple colleges in Karnataka, and in one set of pictures you see students in a group photograph without the hijab. And then you have the other set of pictures in which some students are wearing hijab, and now multiple judgments are being cited in the Karnataka High Court. Also, what the Malaysian High Court had said, that covering of head is obligatory in Islam. Headscarf an essential part of Islam, not hijab.
Yes, this is an argument that was put forth earlier as well by the advocates for the petitioners. They have been saying that the headscarf is an essential part of Islam, and that should be allowed. And they've also argued on the lines of how it is a fundamental right to express themselves through their attire. But the argument, of course, on the counter would be, if there is a uniform that has been prescribed for all of the students, can this freedom of expression of certain groups or certain individuals be allowed? This is a counter argument, of course, that's expected to come in. So, of course, after all of these arguments conclude, whether even an interim direction will come in from the High Court today, that's the question, because that's quite unlikely because of how elaborate this matter really is. So it could take days before the Karnataka High Court comes out with any sort of concrete order in this regard, and before that, how is the situation really going to unfold in the state is anybody's guess. Considering what's happened today, it looks like unless the the government comes about with a strong action plan to really resolve this matter, put an end to it at a very micro local level, this is going to continue to blow up like we witnessed today.
Okay, while we are staying on these pictures from Shivamogga, where prohibitory orders, like Deepak has been reporting, have been imposed, let's remind our viewers of what the Karnataka Chief Minister has said. He had said in the morning, now that the High Court is looking into this matter, we should not interfere in the process and allow the students to study peacefully. Now, what does he mean? Because the Education Minister would have us believe that the dress code will have to be followed. Otherwise, students wearing hijab will not be allowed in classrooms. Deepak?
Well, you know, right now the Chief Minister, of course, who's in Delhi, has been saying that, you know, there is a need to maintain law and order. There's a need to adhere to the regulations or the order that the government has passed. The government order, like I mentioned, has certain loopholes in terms of the government by itself doesn't prescribe a uniform. It leaves it to the developmental committees of the government colleges, leaves it to the management of the private colleges, which have been, of course, having various rules as far as the wearing of a hijab is concerned. Some of them didn't allow it, some of them, didn't approve of it, some of them allowed it, and some of them even had it mentioned in the rules and regulations of their, college itself, that you can wear a headscarf that matches the uniform and come to college campuses. But now, after this government order, there is more confusion and most of the campuses are not allowing it to happen. So there is, of course, a protest on both sides that we're witnessing. When the Chief Minister, of course, is saying follow the order, that it should have been more concrete, or probably they should have said whatever has been happening in the campuses, ensure that continues until the time that a very detailed order from the government comes or the directive from the Karnataka High Court comes in, because this order right now has sparked off more trouble in various institutions before there is really anything to go by in terms of a directive from the High Court or a detailed order from the Karnataka government. So when you don't have both these aspects and now you throw it open to colleges to really decide what to do, it is pandemonium, and that's exactly what's happening.